On the Manākaʻa fishing village, is there anybody who could address and fill out a little more about the access to the site? I noticed there was no mention of vehicular access, and it is somewhat landlocked on all sides, except for the ocean, of course.
Keone Fox, Manākaʻa Trail Association. So right now there is vehicular access. Well, there is a road, I should say, an old ranch road that enters through the shopping center and crosses through about 4 or 5 Manākaʻa properties, which are now owned by the Galimbas. But our intention was really to promote use of the trail as a way to access the property. And hopefully, as Michelle mentioned earlier, we are in discussions to possibly have a conservation easement over the Manākaʻa parcels. Perhaps we could have vehicular access for the stewardship side. But we'd really like to promote use of the trail to access the property. There are 2 Manākaʻa trails, though, that do connect. One connects Waikapuna with Naʻalehu. The other connects the fishing village with Naʻalehu. And it is possible that we may be able to work with the Galimbas to have hikes during the year where we invite the public to use the Manākaʻa trails, and we are in discussions on that.
I was informed by Commissioner Brishaw that the Manākaʻa fishing village, the trail goes through Waikapuna. Is that true?
Correct.
Waikapuna has not yet been secured.
Correct.
Right. So you're kind of basing it. Well, it looks like Waikapuna is going to be secured because everything is going well with that, and there's not going to be a problem. We're just waiting to get the money for it. But what's going to happen is that if, let's say that was not approved, which that's not going to happen, but you're actually depending upon that trail that goes through Waikapuna, aren't you?
That could be a starting point. Again, we'll have to do a community management plan when Waikapuna is purchased. But the trail is actually a nationally designated trail.
So it's open to you.
It's open to the public.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and actually that didn't start with the federal government. I'd just like to give respect to our Queen, Liliuokalani, in 1892. She passed the Highways and Trails Act, and all trails and highways and roads that were in existence at that time were to be owned by the people. And that law has since then been adopted by our state constitution. So, even though these properties are all private, we try to remind the public that they have rights to use those trails.
348 property is proposed for acquisition. Is this 9510 parcel 26, owned by LLC Kavala of Waimea. The property is platted at 218.6 acres on the tax maps and looks small, but a 2018 survey of the parcel determined it to be actually 348 acres. It's land use designation ag, except for the Makai part near the Pali, which is designated conservation. And as was explained earlier, the protection of the Ka'u coastline has been a long-standing goal of the community, as expressed in the community development plan and interest in other related projects, particularly those along the Alakahakai, where connectivity along that trail is important. And this property has 1.2 miles of coastline, and adjacent to it on the Makai end is a piece of state land that's in between it and the Kahilipali Waikapuna property. And then going the other direction, the trail would connect up to another property that I know the public is interested in, Kaunamano. So that's another one that would continue the linkage of the trail if it comes through. The position of this property is special. It's a really old piece of the landscape, and the landscape is has a natural prominence. If you look at the geological map, it's surrounded by various faults, which has left it sitting higher than a lot of the adjoining properties. It shares that situation with the easternmost part of the Kahilipali Waikapuna property. So as a consequence, it gets a really good view, and that view is particularly good on the Makai side, where you can sweep along. As you walk along the coast, you can see east, you can see south, and you can see Makai from the trail portion that we walked along. The area is really old geologically, which is why so much ash has accumulated, and it has been used for agriculture for a very long time. So as a consequence, the only substantive native plants were right along the Pali. So its importance would be less for native organisms and more for its view, its cultural significance, and the, as I mentioned earlier, the protection of the coastline along that trail. And it's an important link in the chain. And the kipuka that I'm talking about is makes up most of the property and extends a little bit outside the property, and it has been surrounded by a very old stone wall. But if you go further towards Kahilipali, towards the southwest, you get into the younger lava flow, which is still quite old and still has decent soil, and that's where the Manākaʻa village site is located. It's mostly overgrown with grass and some wili laiki, and as such, it's protected because it's not obvious where all the features are. And I think such protection would really help in the long run as people access it. It's not putting the features at risk. And except for those who know their way to the coast, I suspect that most access will be practiced just along the Alakahakai Trail.